people's stories are different.
Absolutely.
The transitioning in the fourth trimester post-pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's like a big deal because we speak about, you know, the first trimester, second trimester, during the pregnancy, but the post.
Yeah.
That's where I want us to touch
Totally.
deep
Let's
into
do
that sweet spot.
That's actually the most neglected part of pregnancy, because even from a medical perspective, we're kind of like, you're done, I'm done, you're out of here, kind of thing. And I find there's a lot of shame as well with women coming up and saying, I'm struggling.
I almost feel like the fourth trimester should be about the mom.
Yeah.
Right? Where you're almost taking care of the baby and the mom.
Yeah.
And you know, and everyone makes it about the baby and all the tensions on the baby, and the mom's now neglected. Thank you, you've done your job. Whereas it's a very sensitive time and a time of transition for moms as well.
Interesting. Very interesting. This is going to be fun. Hello, Jen. Hello.
Hey.
Hello. You're like the social distancing master. Like you're like a social distancing
I'm nailing
extremist.
it, man. I got it down. Hey?
You definitely have it down.
Social distancing from across the world, but this is the world now, right? It's
I know.
like amazing and sad, but more amazing actually.
Yeah.
Because, you know.
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
That's really cool. Yeah.
I think it's really cool that, you know, you could be all the way abroad in New Zealand and we could still tap into you, you plug into us, and we talk about, you know, all these things that need to be spoken about. I mean, our beautiful feminine bodies that are so powerful, that have the ability to incubate human life and, you know, see it to birth. You know, I want to get us straight into fourth trimester, because the ladies and I were chatting. And we're talking about, you know, how we always talk about the importance of, you know, the sensitivity of the first trimester and how to look after yourself during pregnancy and the do's and the don'ts of during the pregnancy experience. But then there's so much more that happens post-pregnancy, you know, that transition once the baby is born. And I love the coining of, you know, it being the fourth trimester, because with pregnancy, a lot of people ended at 3, right? You have your first trimester, you've got your second trimester, and you've got your third trimester, and those are the buzz, almost like segments of pregnancy. You know, it's almost like we're forgetting that when a baby is born, a new mom is born as well. Yeah. Because it's all newness, like you know, if the baby has new life, new experiences ahead of them, new things to learn, and we almost like isolate the concept that a new mom has also just been born into the world, and it's a different stage of their lives as well. It's this problematic concept of snapping back, which is something that I think I experienced, because I mean, 2 weeks after, and I was saying, 2 weeks after giving birth, I put myself under this pressure to just get back into everything. And both pregnancies were cesareans, and I bled, you know, a lot. And it was tricky to just snap back. And because the deliveries were cesareans, with the first cesarean, I felt failed as a woman. I felt like I failed. I'm like, my gosh, you failed to give birth vaginally. What's wrong with your vagina? You know, this is what I went through, like immediately. I even cried. I remember even crying. And I'm not sure if that has anything to do with maybe traces of postpartum depression, or the snapping back and the overwhelming pressure that I put myself under, that I'm this superhuman being. And actually, I'm allowed, my body is allowed to transition and carry the weight of this pregnancy as it wishes, right? So for me, it's almost like every experience is valid. Everyone's story is valid. Everyone's journey is valid. And that was me as a new mom that was born when my first child was born. So
this concept of bouncing back, like, guys, what are we bouncing back to? Like, why are we wanting to go back? Why are we wanting to go backwards? Like, what is this kind of thing that we have about, like, bouncing back?
I don't know if it's because we've seen our mothers being strong, or, you know, us not having those kind of conversations, but there's this pressure that you have to do and be everything to
Yeah.
everyone,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the powerful things I find in storytelling, you know, in sharing my journey, in following other moms that
The
share
modern
their journey.
Zulu mom.
Yes, but
Yeah.
like, you know, following moms like Jen, where we open up conversations to say, guys, listen, my tummy is, I have to wear 6 different leggings or 6 different tights before I put on my dress, underneath my dress. But let's talk about that, because the next new mom is being influenced by that. They see Dineo, oh, she's wearing a crop top 2 weeks after giving birth. What is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And you know,
Exactly.
there's things like abdominal separation. There's so much that happens to your body, and if we're not sharing authentically and openly those stories, just for the benefit of other moms, you know, we almost saying this is how it's supposed to be. But if we all share our own individual stories in our own authentic way, then we're opening up those conversations, say this is not me, or this is not my body, or I'm going through this journey. But it becomes so much easier for moms not to feel this pressure.
You've got 3 children, right? And that's literally a lot of activity around the household. I can completely relate to that. And you know, you're blogging and you're running your life and you're doing all of these amazing things, you know, within your life. With each of your pregnancies, did you feel that your 4th trimester was given, you know, the care? Were you queening during your 4th trimester?
So, you know, I think I had 2 different experiences. So, I think with my first child, I was still living at home.
Yeah.
I was still living with my grandparents, with my mom. So, I had that support structure. But at the same time, you know, there's also a level of guilt. So I had my first child quite young.
Yeah.
So there was always the level of guilt, and I think I didn't allow myself. So although I had the support, I felt like this is my responsibility. I need to take care of these children. So it took me a long time to get into that empowered feeling where, you know, that's what I'm saying. I had 2 different experiences.
Yeah.
With my next 2 children, I definitely think I took some of that, because I realized that I don't have to carry that guilt. It's okay to be supported. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, we in our modern world now, we don't grow up in communities as much. We quite isolated. We have different homes, so we don't have that support like you know, probably our grandmothers and you know, generations before had. So I definitely think I experienced a bit of both.
Yeah.
I think the other part, and for me, it has been both from being a mom and also being a gynae, where you find that we do everything technical, but we forget that we are working with moms who, like I said, brand new moms, whose emotions are changing, whose bodies have changed. One of the empowering things that I love is sharing my own experiences as a gynae.
Of course.
And not only that, there is something about allowing somebody to tell their story and give them permission that it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, one of the difficulties I experienced with my pregnancy, for example, was one, I had to go back to work quite immediately because of just the circumstances I was in. So you do get people who genuinely have to get back on the you know, onto work and so on. There are moms who are single. You know, the relationship and the support is not as great, and you need to be able to break things down for them and say, how do we support you? That's why I love this kind of conversation, because it starts opening up things like, how do we support every mom with their circumstance, but in the postpartum in particular, it's not just the gynae. And a lot of women don't know this. They are mom bloggers. These are all little bits that come in handy to give information, and information that can empower you and set you free from even things that you either believed or that you've been telling yourself. I mean, if I get out there and say, yo guys, I've had a baby and my baby's still like this.
Jen, I want to come back to you. I mean, you know, being a post-birth doula, right? And you know, dealing a lot with the 4th trimester. There's a word. Please help me pronounce it. Teach us all.
Okay. So the word is called is matrescence.
Matrescence. There we go. Matrescence. What is this word? Where does it come from? Why the buzzword all of a sudden? And what should we know about this big word, matrescence?
the word that it kind of sounds a lot like, and it's very much related to, is the word adolescence, right? So we all know what adolescence means. It's a huge shift in our physiology, our kind of our mental and emotional state, and also this kind of concept of identity formation. You know, it's, we are kind of a chrysalis is coming out into being adults. And so the word matrescence is basically exactly the same, but to describe what a woman goes through once she's given birth. So from pregnancy right through to postpartum, if we think of this word matrescence, the fact that our body changes exponentially, like literally it suddenly has a baby, suddenly does it, our boobs change, they start producing milk. There's a huge hormonal component that goes on during this time, from when you are pregnant to when you are not pregnant, especially for moms who are breastfeeding. You know, our bodies are governed by prolactin and oxytocin to produce milk. And all of the other hormones kind of have to fall into line to accommodate these hormones now working at their optimum so that we can feed our babies. And then there is this identity loss and this identity shift that happens that we don't really talk about. And with that, you know, by the time we are giving birth and having babies, we are already formed, you know, full functioning adults, right? With lives, you know, with routines, with jobs, many of us, and, you know, just, and now we have a baby, and all of that gets brought into kind of question because we have changed, and we're kind of mourning our old life as well, because we now suddenly have to take care of a new baby. There's a lot of grief, there's a lot of mourning, just like when you are a teenager. We can understand that women need a team. Dr. Zenda was talking earlier, you know, this whole thing of like, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to raise a mother, man. We need a team of people to help us navigate this time, you know, from our pelvic floor specialists to our gynaes and OBGYNs, to our doulas, to our psychologists, whatever. Like, and so if we kind of really start to get with this word matrescence on a big scale and bring it back, like, and make it as commonly used as adolescence, then I think society and mothers would have a far easier time postpartum, and we would just be more understanding.
I resonate with that. I resonate with that because for me, it always felt like it takes that 1 year before I feel like myself again, before I feel like, you know, going to the gym, going out to see my friends without the guilt, getting back into the things that I enjoy, whether it's studying or doing something else. But it makes sense because it takes so long to feel like you're getting back to the you that you were before, and to kind of form this new identity for yourself. So thanks for framing it like that. Because then it makes so much sense to me.
Let's talk about the physical detail of you know, the transitioning. I mean, the emotional transition in the fourth trimester, the psychological transition, the physical transition. I mean, there's so much going on in the body after it gives birth. Dr. Zenda, I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. And I think I love these kind of conversations because we don't know things that we don't know. So if a lot of women understand what are the changes, you kind of also don't set your expectations. I mean, simple things like how much weight you're going to lose, things like the change in things like your libido, in terms of things like your physical body taking a knock just from not being able to sleep as well. Babies are different. And there's this sort of like juggle between, do I look after myself or do I look after the baby? If I'm looking after myself, is it, a lot of women will feel guilt and shame. And so, you know, what Tando touches on in terms of help, we need to get back to that sense of it's okay to get help. It is absolutely okay to say, I'm not okay. And so it's not, and the physical changes are not just impacting just, you know, so let's say, for example, the weight. They make you, they impact your psychology, because if you don't feel, or if you think, I don't look well, I don't look like how I used to be before I was pregnant, that affects how you look at yourself. That affects your sense of confidence, even as a mom. If you are struggling with breastfeeding, for example, that's a physical thing in terms of, say, you know, the production of milk. But if you think it's entirely up to you, then you start having a sense of, you know, it knocks your self-esteem, and it just a ripple effect into that postpartum depression or baby blues. Yeah.
But now, how do we know the difference between matrescence and postpartum depression?
The difference between perinatal mood and anxiety disorders and matrescence is that every woman will experience symptoms of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders throughout that first year, possibly even longer. So when I say symptoms, we talk about things like immense feelings of sadness, wanting to cry a lot of the time. You know, we might lose our appetite at some stage. We might really be anxious and not sleeping properly, even though our baby is sleeping, something we call tired but wired, okay? We might just have this, like, you know, days where we're feeling just generally off, you know, and feeling anxious a lot of the time. And that is exactly what happens in matrescence and adolescence. We have those days. And, you know, another thing we also have to understand when it comes to perinatal mental health, it's a sliding scale. So, you know, on the one hand, you have the very common thing, something which is called baby blues, which happens at around the 3 to 4, 5 day mark, which is when it's a physiological response to your milk coming in and the huge hormonal shift that happens to allow that process to start. And a lot of women, most women go through that. It's very tearful. You feel like really emotional. I remember that day very clearly in my own journey. And then on the opposite end of the scale, you get things like postpartum psychosis and bipolar disorder, which is brought on as a result of having a baby. And those are very serious conditions, and they're not as common, and that needs immediate medical intervention. Those ones on that side. So you've got these two kind of, you know, sides. Somewhere in between here, you get postpartum anxiety and postpartum depression, and they're not in the middle. For some women it might be that way, for other women it might be closer to the baby blues, but for most women, symptoms of postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety are very likely to occur within that first year. It doesn't mean you have it. It means that you are going through matrescence, and it's very normal. But you will know, and hopefully you will know with the help of your doctor. And if things persist for longer than 2 to 3 weeks of these feelings of immense sadness, grief, tearfulness, all of those things we spoke about, if that persists for longer than 2 to 3 weeks and if things are not getting better, that's when it's time to seek help.
Tando, in that year that you are seeing in your life, reflecting now as matrescence, had you ever experienced postpartum anxiety and depression?
So I think I definitely can relate or pick up, you know, some of the things that Jen has mentioned that I felt, particularly around my first child, where I realized, so I almost had this resentment, and I knew it wasn't healthy.
Towards what?
My child.
Really?
It was almost like it was a bit of sadness. It was a bit of, I don't know what to do, like a helplessness. It was the emotional parts of crying. And that's when I realized that there was something wrong.
Did you go seek help?
I didn't. I wish I did.
How did you deal with it? If you're not, if you know, a medical expert would be saying, you know, but 2-3 weeks, and you know, you're getting more sad, you know, you're feeling heavier, nothing's looking brighter from your POV, go seek help, and you don't. How did you manage that? Because it sounds, I can't even imagine. It sounds really sad and overwhelming.
It was really intense, you know, and it was because I was young, and I felt like I didn't know that this is something that could occur.
Do you mind me asking how young was young?
I was 22.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I thought, or the narrative that, you know, I was being fed is, you're a mom, and I see my mom, she's organized, she's sorted, and we don't expose that vulnerable side or our vulnerability to say, you know what, you don't have to have everything under control. So I actually did something quite extreme, and I went back to work earlier than my maternity leave was due, because I was like, I need to get out. I recognized that there was something that was unhealthy, and I realized that how I was feeling was not going to be healthy for my son. And you know, at the same time I was trapped. You know, you read about the baby blues, but they say it's only a couple of days or a couple of weeks. And here I am, you know, 2 months down the line feeling this. So I went back to work, and that's when I realized that, you know, okay, that wasn't normal. That, you know, in retrospect, it wasn't normal. It wasn't healthy. And I started actually looking forward to being with my child. So. And I wish I had heard more stories, you know, from moms that had experienced similar. And it's almost like you don't want to warn, or, you know, for lack of a better word, you don't want to, I guess, scare a new mom or a mom to be. But I think we need to find, you know, ways to engage with new
strike
moms.
a balance. Yeah.
You know, to say, you know, should you feel like this, please know that it's normal to a friend.
Yeah.
You know what, you're gonna have a baby, or Dr. Zenda, you're gonna have a baby. You know, should you feel these kind of things, please go talk to someone. Call me, call your doctor, call your gynae. And I think we should be talking about that much more.
A lot more. I really agree with that. Did you ever get a sense that, you know, you put yourself under pressure to just get over it? Like when you were feeling the heaviness and the sadness and that resentment towards baby, was there any guilt that you processed at all? And, you know, you cracked a whip on yourself and just, like, you know, just snap out of it, get out, like literally get over it.
Yeah. So the guilt was there because I'm supposed to be this child's world. I'm supposed to, this child is looking up to me for answers, for security, for protection. And here I am, like, losing control.
And you know, this brings me, I love the fact that you're saying, here I am losing control. This really brings me to us having to loudly push the message that, ladies, it's okay to not be okay. Because I cannot imagine what it must have felt like. It must have felt so lonely in your mind and in your heart to look at just your precious newborn baby and feel these feelings of resentment build up. And because, I mean, when you think of your partner and you think of the moments in which you've resented this human being that you're sharing your life with, I mean, that's really deep emotions. That's like the levels of angry are like from 1 to 10, extreme sport, wear a helmet, grab a bat, you know? Like literally, call the cops, 10-111 now. But now when you're looking at this baby,
You feel inadequate.
Is that how it was for you?
Yeah, because I'm supposed to, you know, in my mind, I'm the nurturer, I'm the caregiver for this child. But yet I feel this way. So there was shame.
Society compliments you on how well a mom you are, how well you are showing up with your baby. I mean,
and that time you're feeling like a complete and adequate failure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's so much that is going on there as well. I love the coining of the word, because it also gives women language to say, this is what I'm going through. And that specification of saying, if something is going on for more than 2 weeks, then that's something wrong. There's something wrong. And I'm always harsh on us, because we walk with women. Nobody specifically says and does it well a journey of, after delivery, this is what you are likely to experience. If it gets there, if you're having issues with your pelvic floor, you know, urine leakage, things that really women find difficult to raise. If it's something to do with libido, if it's something to do with your mental health, if it's something to do with not feeling adequate on how to assist your baby, you are, like we say, you are a baby mom. You need the nurturing, and it always has so much power when it comes from professionals and experts and other moms, people who have gone through it. It really, we should be creating that village of support for every single woman.
You know, I think a huge piece to this puzzle is that we are led to believe that the problem is with us, that there is a problem with us. You know, there's something wrong with our chemistry. There's something wrong with our, you know, people even say things like, you know, well, you're genetically predisposed, you know, like there's something wrong with our genetics. There's something, and this for me is an issue. And the reason why it's an issue is because you look at a country like South Africa, right? the rates of perinatal mood and anxiety disorders are unbelievably high. It's 1 in 3 women. You know, other countries in the world, it's 1 in 5 women. But even still, that's pretty high, you know. And I think we need to also understand and look at why are the numbers so high? Like, what is going on in society and what women have to deal with every day that is allowing for this? Because it can't just be with the problem is with the individual. It can't.
We all know, like, after giving birth, you're bleeding quite a lot. You have not bled in months.
Yeah.
And now you're having to kind of come back into the menstrual cycle of things, and it's abnormal. It's not normal. It goes abnormal first before it normalizes.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we can support each other better by really talking about these things very openly. And this is what I want to talk about now. Sure. How do you support yourself? And what about that bleeding? Like, it's shocking.
Yeah.
It really is shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to be bleeding heavily throughout the day. I've got to worry about my boobs
about
that
to
are
say.
also about to start leaking. I've got a vag that's leaking. Like, all of me is leaking.
I used to walk into
Like, I'm just leaking. I'm a leakage. I need a plumber. That's what I need. How do we get there?
Funny you should ask. I used to walk into a labor ward, and just the screams and the cries of other moms' babies would cause my own breast to leak. So I would constantly have to go and make sure that I've got some nipple pads and things like that. Also, remember, bleeding is not just about the discomfort of the bleeding and having, you know, the right sanitary towels, pads. It's also about the fact that when you're bleeding, you are losing energy. So you get tired. So over and above the fact that you didn't sleep the night before because of baby, now you have to be at work and perform. And here's another pressure we put on ourselves. We want to get back to the working world and perform like we used to.
Yeah, we want to be at optimum.
Or double the way, like, you know, work twice as hard. And our bodies crack.
Bodies cracking brings me to my next thought, right? Ladies, the difference between post-birth bleeding and your very first menstrual cycle post-birth.
Yeah.
These are different, right?
Yes.
The bleeding that you experience as a woman immediately after birth is completely different from your first period.
On the types of bleeding, so immediately after delivery, you get what you call postpartum bleeding, and it starts changing literally within days of delivery. Like literally 2 to 3 days, it'll go from being what we call, lochia, rubra, all the way, so it's red, and then it starts changing color until it's like sort of like straw colored right at the end.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I think we don't explain well, and this I take full responsibility for myself and my colleagues, is that we don't explain that when you deliver, your womb is literally at up to about the diaphragm.
Yeah.
And that process of your womb going back to normal takes about 6 weeks.
Sure.
So there is this unspoken bleed that you will get out of the blue, where it's caused by the fact that your uterus is slowly contracting and getting smaller, and women will get a fright of their lives thinking something is wrong, like 2-3 weeks down the line from the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing that does influence also in terms of now how soon you get back into your normal cycle or period is things like, did you take a contraception immediately after delivery?
Yeah.
Also, are you breastfeeding? Yeah, because, you know, contraception will, if you get an immediate contraception, that will help to regulate your period much quicker. But also, if you're breastfeeding, for example, that can mask and delay your period even by 2 to 3 cycles sometimes. So every single person is slightly different, but it's important to understand those literally 3 different kinds of bleeds. So it's the
there's
initial.
not 2, there's actually 3.
There's actually 3. There is the initial part, which is like over literally by like day 5, day 6 of delivery, it kind of subsides.
Yeah.
And then you get this all of a sudden bleed that happens from about 2 to 3 weeks after you've delivered. That's the one that scares women a lot, particularly if they've had a cesarean section, because they often think, did my wound break, my wound break inside? Is there something wrong?
Yeah, I remember having those thoughts,
Right. And then actually getting back to your routine or your normal cycle.
Yeah.
And even your normal cycle, we say give it 3 to 6 months before it actually gets into a routine of what you were used to.
Yeah,
Some people never really get back to. Some people, they find themselves, they've got heavier bleed after delivery. Some people have got lighter periods after delivery. Some people have worse off menstrual periods. Some people have, no menstrual periods afterwards. It's so important to acknowledge, be aware of your own body. If you are unsure, or if you are concerned, speak up, say something. So I think it's important, find products that are suitable for the kind of bleeding you are having at the time. And we've got amazing ranges, that are available, from maternity all the way to liners. It is so important to pick what you need.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the world, pick what you need and what works for you.
Yeah. I think it's important that we highlight the weight of shame and mom guilt, and how to better support each other out of that shame and that mom guilt. Like for me, I was having a conversation with someone earlier today, and we're talking about, kids and I'm not ashamed to say, and I know anyone would probably see this as a big negative, but I feel like when you're able to honestly say certain things that you feel, you're able to remedy your emotional state and your psychological state on the immediate, so that it doesn't become this budding seed of I'm lying to myself, then it becomes something bigger, and then it becomes something bigger. Then all of a sudden you're tormented by this world of, we're talking with this person earlier on, and we're talking about kids, and we're actually on the road taking a drive. I'm like, I actually don't like kids, but I'm a mom.
Yeah.
And I enjoy being a mom.
Yeah.
But like, honestly speaking, when I have to speak, no guilt, no shame in my game. Absolutely not. I think they're beautiful little nightmares to have in your life, and they make sense at some point, but I really don't like having them around all the time. Hence, I tap into my support basis. Hence, I'll send them off to their grandparents every now and again. Hence, when hubby and I want to have some nice nookie time, we like unashamedly make sure that, the kids are gone and we've got some alone time. So when I hear myself say things like this, honestly, in conversations, I feel I've done myself a world of justice as a woman to be honest about my feelings, but also not take that honesty as a negative, because we shame ourselves. Like we also just shame each other. If another woman were to just candidly hear me say, well, I don't really like kids, and then they look at my life and like, but she's got 6 of them. Why does she have them if she doesn't really like them? No, don't get so deeply involved. That's my little burden to deal with. I'm managing it, I'm handling it. These are my honest feelings. So why do we shame each other on the things that we truly, genuinely feel?
Motherhood is like not one-dimensional.
Yeah.
We all have those
Totally.
unique experiences.
It's not a monolith. Yeah.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
no script, and there's individual experiences.
Yeah.
I may enjoy that, and you don't, and it does not make you like a less of a mother because of our differences.
Yeah.
So as we need to go back kind of to normalizing that, normalizing our stories, normalizing our experiences, and just talking about them, like you're saying. And the more, like almost going back to the communities that we used to have, where we've got this network of support, so that when your child is with their grandmother, that's a normal thing. So you shouldn't be ashamed to reach out to your sisters, to your friends and your family, to say, guys, here are the kids.
Here's the kids, this is how I'm feeling. On that note, I want to find out from each of you, what's the one thing, knowing what you know now, right? Coming to the end of our conversation right now, what would you tell your younger self? I'll start with you, Tando.
Sure.
Yeah,
That it's okay, and that you'll get through it.
girl.
And I think that's it's permission. That's what I'm trying to say. Give yourself permission to navigate your journey in your own way. Let it unfold for you individually, and that won't look like anyone else's journey.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. What's yours, Dr. Zenda?
Phew, for me, it is probably asking for help is not a weakness, it's a strength. And allowing yourself to rest, allowing your body to speak to you and say, okay, I'm okay with this now. I'm okay to go back to work. Yes, understandably, circumstances may not necessarily be allowing, but to absolutely surrender to the process that's happening and not try to fight it, not try to bounce back into anything, and just say, it's okay to ask for help. It's not a weakness, and I'm not less of a mom. Yeah.
I love that as well. Yeah. Jen, what's yours?
I think for me, I mean, there are a few things, but if I had to choose, I'd say I wish that I was more prepared as a pregnant mom, first time mom. I wish I had been, it's almost like I felt like I needed to be let into the secret club of like the realness of motherhood, because, you know, back then, like 4 or 5 years ago, all you got was like this picture perfect, insta perfect idea and vision of motherhood, that it's you're becoming, it's the most amazing experience of your life, but no one's talking about how it's not that. You know, yes, it is that, but there's also so much more that no one speaks about. Yeah, that's what I wish I knew.
And you know, going to the experts, what I love living in the digital world does not really have to be a super costly exercise. I think we're both very fortunate to be sitting with two experts, you know, Jen and Dr. Zenda. I mean, you guys contribute on, you know, our community, Lil-Lets talk.co.za.
Big ups.
And you're answering questions all the time, and you know, you're sharing in that community, and I think that's absolutely great. Especially in a COVID world, you don't have to leave the safety of home. It generally was the comfort of home, but now it's the safety of home, and you can just tap into this world of dialogue and have most of your most personal questions answered, you know. But this is how accessible experts are. And this is what I love about this entire thing that we're doing right now. It's just literally a few words and a .co.za away. That's like what it is. It's like literally to access the both of you is a literal Lil-Lets talk.co.za away. And we've started the process of, you know, inner conflict resolution with these heavy topics, because they are generally heavy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's life-changing, it's shifting, it's altering, it's relationship altering.
I think as well, we've also got to realize, like, if there's one thing that, you know, 2020 taught us, is that this idea of community and the village can be digital as well, you know, like with people from all over the world. And sometimes there's such a gift in that, because it can also provide perspective. When you hear what other women, I mean, I see it all the time. Like when I hear what other women are going through, like in different parts of the world, it's like, it really sheds light on your situation, you know, and like a shared connection on some level, but also gives you perspective as to, aha, I didn't think of it that way, you know, and that's really important. And I think, you know, this thing about galvanizing community and support, it looks very different today for modern mothers, you know, like, so we've got to be very strategic, and we've got to plan for our postpartum period, right? So there's so much emphasis on a birth plan, so much. There is nothing on a postpartum plan. And I really, really wish that this would shift. And I think it's so important for parents to understand today that, like, the easiest and best transition through matrescence and that fourth trimester is to just be prepared. Join these chat forums like we've got with Lil-Lets, you know, start getting the information, start asking the questions, you know, join a mom's group, join an Instagram community, you know, like follow some Instagram accounts. Like the world is at our fingertips today, literally at our phone.
Ladies, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. This was really fulfilling. This was so wholesome. It was like literally nourishing. And these conversations can continue on any given day. The onus is on each and every one as an individual to want to take the journey, to want to have the conversation, to want to ask the questions, to get the honest answers. And it's not always going to be a comfortable conversation, but it's one that will be had. Lil-Lets talk.co.za. That's where we continue. Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. This was just like literally
amazing.
Yay!